So, now some people say pre-trib is a new position. That's not true. You'll find that as pre-tribulation eschatology in the Epistle of Barnabas in the 1st century, Irenaeus against heresies, Hippolytus, these in the 2nd century, Justin Martyr. Ephraim the Syrian. This is an interesting discovery that was just made a couple years ago. Ephraim of Nisibis was a major writer for the Eastern Church, not the Latin Church, the Eastern Church. Many of it, he wrote many of the hymns, many of his sermons have never been translated. And this was discovered by Grant Jeffries and Tommy Ice and Tim Demme, and they contracted to have it translated and confirmed. In one of his sermons, this is 306 to 373, in his sermon on the last times, the Antichrist and the end of the world, Ephraim said, "For all the saints and elect of God are gathered prior to the tribulation that is to come and are taken to the Lord, lest they see the confusion that is to overwhelm the world because of our sins." One of the phrases from his sermon. The point being only this, not that he's right or wrong, it's just that this view is not new. It's the view of the early church. It was the view of the New Testament church. It's the view of the early churches. And furthermore, you can track a remnant of this kind of teaching all the way through church history. I won't take you through all this list. It was popularized by Edward Irving, John Darby, Margaret MacDonald in the early 19th century. But they didn't invent it, they just popularized it. Something else I want to put before you before we close, the architecture of the book of Revelation. There's many things I could pick, I'll just pick a few. There are lampstands that show up that are prominent in chapter 1. They are identified in the last verse of chapter 1 as identifying the church. Chapters 2 and 3 are the letter 7 churches, I'll come back to that. From chapter 4 on, you don't find the lampstands on the earth, you find them in heaven when John gets there in the 5th verse of chapter 4. The lampstands are defended by the church. They are in heaven in chapter 4. I hold that the rapture, that John is modeling, if you will, the rapture when he's called up there and treated to a preview of everything that's coming. Let's go to the 24 elders. A lot of confusion about this, shouldn't be. The 24 elders are very prominent, and they identify who they are. They identify themselves as the redeemed in chapter 5, verses 9 and 10. Out of 50 manuscripts, one of them uses a third person. All the others use thou hast redeemed us, first person singular, plural. Thou hast redeemed us from every tribe, tongue, and nation. And one manuscript has a second person there, and some people try to build a case on that. 24 elders identify themselves, and the point of it is the 24 elders representing the church. Bear in mind, there's only one group of people that are priests and kings. Melchizedek was a king and a priest. Jesus is a king and a priest, and his redeemed are kings and priests. 1 Peter and so forth speaks of us as king and priest and so forth. These guys, the priesthood was 24 courses that David organized. If you study 24, it occurs only once in the Bible. It's when David sets up the 24 courses of the priests of the temple. Anyway, the 24 elders, they worship the Lamb before he receives the 7-sealed book. It's after they worship him, the tribulation begins when the 7-sealed book is open. So you get the sequence here. The saints are in heaven. They worship the Lamb. He receives the scroll. He opens the scroll. That starts the tribulation. The church is in heaven before the... And of course, from chapter 6 on is a detailing of the 70th week of Daniel, up until the climax of Revelation 19, where the bridegroom and the bride have their marriage supper and so forth. Furthermore, if you're going to study the 7 churches in Revelation, you'll discover there are 7 churches that are representative churches. Why these 7? Because they profile the church's history. Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. I encourage you, of all the passages in Revelation to really be familiar with, is chapters 2 and 3. They're the only ones that relate to you and I. And they happen to be, in the particular order they're in, they happen to lay out the history of the church. The apostolic church, the persecuted church, the married church, the medieval church, the denominational church, missionary church, and the apostate church. Don't accept from this chart, just use this as stimulus to do your own homework. It's interesting that the first 3, I'll call group A, are distinctive in their structure, that the promises given to the overcomers are postscripted to the letters. The second group, group B I'll call it, have 2 distinctives. One of the promises are in the body of the letter, promises of the overcomer. They're somehow different. But also they have, each of the last 4 have explicit references to the second coming. In fact, one of them, Thyatira, is promised that they're going to go into the Great Tribulation. That itself is interesting because that implies the others won't. It's a distinctive that the Thyatira We'll go, read the letter. There's one of the four that was promised it would not go into the time of the tribulation. A couple of the others are problematical. We'll let you study those. If Thyatira is the medieval church or the Catholic church, then Sardis must be the Protestant church, and it's the only one, it's one of the two letters that has nothing good said about it. That should give us a little pause. But what we should recognize, we studied seven churches, is that each one was surprised by the report card. Every one of the seven was surprised by the report. Those that thought they were doing well were not. Those that thought they weren't doing well were doing great. That should give us a pause to really understand the seven letters. Well, we know from a lot of reasons that we're getting near the end of it all. If you want to know what time it is, you just look at Israel. That's God's timepiece. For lots of reasons, we can infer that the 70th week is getting set up to happen. We have, of course, the Battle of Armageddon. We have the temple being rebuilt as a condition of the abomination. We don't know what's going to be rebuilt because it could be built before the 70th week or during the first half. Who knows? All we do know is that we'll be standing by the middle of that 7-year period because Jesus, Paul, and John all make reference to it there at the end time. There's the big issue of the Magog invasion. The classic placement of it is at the part of the Armageddon scenario. Hal Lindsey and many other all competent scholars hold that view. There's a few of us that have a different view. Grant Jeffries and Chuck Smith and myself and some others believe for a number of technical reasons that the Magog invasion occurs prior to the 70th week. Now, who's right and wrong doesn't matter. They may prove to be, the others may be proved to be right. The main point is we all do agree on one thing. It happens after the rapture of the church. The Magog is one of those things that happens after the rapture of the church because of the doctrine of imminency and about 4 or 5 other things. So anyway, in any case, it's close because the Magog invasion is, we now see I've for many years pointed Turkey being pro-West as a major, indicator. It's the only one that wasn't in the picture. They've just gone, the Islamic Party has just succeeded the elections. You expect Turkey to swing to the east. Turkey is a major player. They're not ready to do that next month or whatever. There's still 16 agreements with the Israelis to trade bases and so forth, but as the time ticks off, Turkey will be increasingly adverse to Israel, and the Magog invasion that Ezekiel talks about could be all in place, implying a nuclear exchange. There are 10 reasons that I think the church will go before the tribulation. First of all, the fact that we're promised to be from the hour of trial, Revelation 3:10. And the word ek there, out of, promised out of thing, is from which we get the word exit, by the way. The church is not the object of God's wrath in Revelation 6:16. Contrast that with 1 Thessalonians 5:9. There's also a verse in Luke 21, verse 36. We're admonished, watch ye therefore, and pray always that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things which shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. You escape, not endure the tribulation. How do you do that, by the way? That implies that there's a way to keep out of it, right? Did you follow that? Watch ye therefore, and pray always that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things. How do you do that? You do that by being in his body that's raptured. Another verse in Luke 21. When these things begin to come to pass, look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. He says look up, not look out. You don't find any admonitions to the church to watch out for the Antichrist. Watch out, watch. No, look up. First thing before war is you call your ambassadors to home. 2 Corinthians 5:20 calls us the ambassadors of Christ. And before the war starts, he'll call his ambassadors home. Restrainers removed before the Antichrist. 2 Thessalonians 2, we looked at that. The rapture takes place in the twinkling of an eye, not as an extended activity. That's another issue that you can sort through. It happens in the air, not on the earth. And the woman in Revelation 12 is Israel, not the church. It's the body of the child that gets caught up. And, of course, the marriage supper in heaven, it includes the raptured, and it happens before Revelation 19, verse 11 to 14. By the way, I've selected these 10 out of 50 that are listed in John Walver's book, The Rapture Question. There's plenty of literature on the subject for those who want to do their homework. So let's wrap it up. Let's talk about the proposal. How will all this affect you is the question. Back in John 14, the Lord said, let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. Do we really? Jesus said, in a few verses later, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Jesus Christ either was God or wasn't, either knew it or didn't know it. Right? If he wasn't God and didn't know it, he's a lunatic.